Okay, so my guest today on the Freedom Pact podcast, I'm joined by Scott Thompson, aka Carrot Top, stand-up comedian, actor. Scott, welcome to the Freedom Pact podcast. It's a pleasure, sir.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, man. Thank you.
So, I want to start right at the beginning. Do you think that making people laugh was Scott Thompson's calling in life?
Absolutely. I was a little kid and I guess you'd say the class clown, but I was always the one that was, my father was very good at joke telling, and he would have, like after work, they would all be in the driveway, and my dad would come home from work and have all these old jokes. And I would sit there and listen to him, and I'd go back to school and tell the class and tell my students and all, my friends every day. In fact, they would always kind of me, what's the joke of the day? What's the joke? So I definitely at a young age wanted to be funny, and I wanted, that was my way of joining into the groups of kids, because I had the jokes.
So what is it about laughter that you think is so important? Why is laughter so important for every single person who lives on this planet?
Well, it releases something. I know that. I mean, I can see the crowd when they leave at night at the end of the show, and they're so, I wouldn't say the word spent, but they're so, they always say, my cheeks hurt or my stomach hurts from laughing. But everybody is laughing. Everybody's forgetting about the world, about the problems they might have, or what's going on in with all these vaccine stuff and all the economy and in politics. And so for that hour or so, they're just laughing and forgetting about all the problems that they might even have individually. I get a lot of fan letters from people all the time that said, my dad was dying, and his last wish was to go to Vegas and see your show. So a lot of times you don't even know that that's happening out in the audience. There's someone that really needs laughter. So it's very important. And I'm lucky that I get to laugh with them. So, it keeps you young. So I get to laugh every day. Like they do.
So what does it do for you on a personal level when you tell a joke and you see somebody laugh? What it sounds like such a simple thing, but what does that do for you on a personal level?
Well, it is kind of a simple answer. I mean, it just makes you feel good, seeing people smile and people just, it's, losing their, then just laugh and say, God, it's funny. And, it just makes everybody feel good. There's nothing like laughter. I mean, getting someone to smile or laugh is, I think, the key to life. I mean, if you think about it, and everywhere you go, if you go out to a restaurant today, you look around people's tables, most of the tables, they're either laughing or they're doing, unless they're on a date and they're having a miserable time. They're laughing and carrying on. And I think that's what everybody wants, because in at their job, they may not get a chance to have that laughter, but they get off work and they go meet their friends and have a couple of drinks, and they get to laugh and tell stories about maybe what have happened to them at work or whatever. But yeah, laughter is the most, really honestly, I think it really keeps you, there's two things I think that's essential just for a human. I think laughter, and I think music. I think, people say reading books, that's good too, it's educational. But when you don't get up from a book and be like, wow, I'm moved. You're at a concert and you're like in the moment, you're dancing and you're singing and you're letting loose. And there's nothing like that. Live entertainment.
It's interesting you bring up music. So my favorite band of all time is Queen. I'm a massive fan. I recently, 2 months ago, I saw Roger Taylor live on his solo tour in the UK. Now, I know you have a bit of a personal relationship with Roger Taylor. So just as a super fan of Roger Taylor, what was it like meeting him?
Oh, you know what? It's surreal. I mean, to this day, and I've been, ever since this happened, and people have asked me who's the biggest star, who's the one that really blew you away. It's always, that's the one, Roger Taylor. He comes to the show and it's Queen. I mean, it's like Queen. And he comes back, and he came and saw the show, and he came backstage, and he couldn't have been nicer, and he kept going on and on. Scott, show's so good. It's so bloody good. And so we became, fast friends. And then I went to London, and he invited me over to lunch at his beautiful estate. And and then we went out to dinner downtown, and he brought me a gold record from his wall for my birthday. I was visiting, and he gave me a gold record of Killer Queens, gold. embossed, framed. I mean, it's still hanging on my wall. It's just spectacular.
Wow.
Great guy. On top of that, you know what I mean? I think if he was a jackass, it wouldn't have been cool. But the fact he was so cool about it, that made him just go even higher. Like, wow, he could have been a dick, but he was beautiful.
Yeah, it's always a strange one when you meet your heroes. It's like they say never meet your heroes, but I guess in that case it kind of worked out. It's always scary when you meet someone you look up to.
Yeah, I got lucky.
And
yeah,
am I right in
true.
thinking Brian May, has Brian May ever attended one of your shows?
Yes, Brian May has come to a couple shows. In fact, interesting with Brian came to the show one night with Roger. And then he asked me on the way out of the dressing room, he said, hey, is it okay if I bring my brother tomorrow again? Would that be weird? And I said, no, it would be an honor. My God. So he came back 2 nights in a row, actually, Brian. And it was interesting because he you know, when first said it, it kind of felt like it was going to be an insult. But because he loved the show so much, he said, you know, I wanted to come back a second time and see if it was bullshit. You know, because it was so good. I want to make sure you could do that kind of show twice that good. And I said, oh, good. Thank God I did. So he said, no, it was unreal. And he said, I love the way you changed it too. Like he was so smart. He was following the show and knew like 1 or 2 jokes that I maybe hadn't done the night that I'd done the night prior. And he recognized it and said, hey, you didn't do that Trump joke. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. Yeah, you're right. I didn't. So he was watching.
So you've been in comedy longer than I've been alive. So let's throw it right the way.
Thank you, Louis, for making me so old.
No, I'm just acknowledging that you're a veteran of the game, man. So if you throw it back to the start, can you remember a moment or a time when you first fell in love with comedy?
Well, I was definitely a young kid. I remember I used to watch The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and I would sneak out and watch, you know, Don Rickles and George Carlin and all those guys on the Steve Martin on The Tonight Show. And I remember one time Mom coming out and catching me and saying, what are you doing? And I said, I'm watching The Tonight Show. She said, you're too young to watch The Tonight Show. And I don't think this stuff's appropriate for you at this age. And I said, no, they're fine. You know, you can't curse on The Tonight Show. So my mom one night said, you know, okay, I'm going to let you watch the show. And she let me watch the comedy section part, and then I went to bed. And then that kind of became my thing. I would always ask her, can I, you know, she said only on Friday because it's, you know, you have school Saturdays, you know. So Friday night I could watch, if they had a comic on, I could watch the Tonight Show. And that's when I said, I want to do that. Wow. And so that's how young it started. And then of course when I went into college is when I dove in. They had an open mic at the college. And my buddy says, you should do that. And I thought, I don't have an act. He said, no, come on, you just go up there and make up something. So I came up with, like, you know, like the old days in the driveway with my father. I just came up with old jokes. Crowd loved it. And I got done, and the guy that did the show said, man, that was great. You want to do that again? And next semester, we're doing another one. Love to have you. I said, yeah, all right. And so I did a couple of those in a row. And then there was a comedy club in town in West Palm Beach, Florida, that had an actual club, like an actual comedy club with, you know, Jeff Foxworthy, the real comics. And, you know, I had never done anything outside the college little stage, you know. So I went down there and kind of auditioned for it, and the lady loved me, and she said, yeah, come back and do a set here. And so I slowly started putting together an act. And then there was like a local contest that I won. And then it started to take off a little bit. But there was a break after that where I kind of got out of comedy because I couldn't figure out how to get enough gigs to support myself. So it was an interesting little part of getting into it, doing pretty well, then having to dive back out of it. And then a friend of mine says, what do you mean you're shucking oysters? You're Carrot Top? And I said, yeah, yes. So then I went right back in, and I've never stopped since. I was back in like 80 something.
So were your family and close friends quite supportive? Because I read that your dad worked for NASA. It's quite a serious job. How did you end up becoming a comic?
Yeah, well, it's a fun story. I mean, I remember my dad was not too keen on me going to be a stand-up comic. In fact, he didn't want me to leave town and go college. He said, just stay in town and work at NASA. And I said, Dad, I'm dumb. I can't work at NASA. You have to be smart to work at NASA. And so I said, and plus I want to learn life. I want to get out, and I'm not going to grow living in the same town that I was born in. I want to see what it's like to live on my own, have college and have friends, and, start some kind of career, not even knowing what I was going to do. It wasn't comedy. So I went to college and got a degree in marketing. So I was working on my marketing degree, and then I just was playing with the comedy. And then when I came back one holiday or whatever, my dad said, how are you paying for your truck? And I said, well, I got the 3 jobs. I was doing like 3 jobs and school. And then I said, I got, a little extra money on the side doing stand-up comedy thing. And he was like, stand-up comedy? What are you talking about? I said, I make like, $50 a week telling jokes or whatever. He's like, what? And I said, it made no sense to him. And then when it really started to, I quit all my other jobs and I was just doing comedy. He didn't understand it at all. So I said, Dad, check it out. I'm doing a show in Jacksonville. It's like an hour and a half away. Why don't you come up? It's at a college. Come up and watch me do my act. And that's what he did. And I remember after the show, he just had his mouth was wide open. He's like, who are you? Like, I didn't even know you existed. Like, when did you, how did you? And so he was an instant fan, and he was just blown away. I mean, he's like, I didn't even no idea you had that in you. You didn't know you were funny.
So you've been Carrot Top, the comedian, for so much of your life now.
Yeah.
Do you find it hard to tread that line between Carrot Top and Scott Thompson? Does that line get a bit blurred sometimes, or is that something you've learned to navigate quite well?
I mean, I think I'm pretty much Carrot Top as far as people are concerned. It's nice when people call me Scott, but off stage, it's funny, people say, are the 2 things. Like on stage, there's more manic and more energy and more whatever. But I am the same guy. I don't have to go into this like, I'm going to be Carrot Top now. I just kind of get into a little energy, like any show. If you watch Freddie Mercury off camera, and then you see him on stage, it's like, wow, what a right. He was just sitting there talking, smoking a cigarette, and just monotone. And then all of a sudden the lights come on. He's Freddie Mercury. So it's probably a little bit of that with every entertainer. Your stage energy level is different than your off stage. But it does get blurred. I mean, I always forget. I like today I'll leave and I'll go get lunch and I walk and I go, oh, forgot I was Carrot Top. Like, you kind of forget.
So when you first started out in the comedy circuit, like I've heard is quite brutal when you start out as a comedian. How did you sort of build up that confidence to throw yourself into the game? Because even with something like podcasting, I remember when I started podcasting 3-4 years ago, I was terrified to put myself on camera. I can't imagine what it's like to stand up in front of a crowd of people and do something you've never done before.
Yeah, and I mean it's definitely you're either got it or don't. I mean, that's one thing you learn, I think, right on. So friends of mine want to be a comedian, and instantly whether you're going to be, if you have the timing, if you have comedy in your brain, and you can delivery, and also standing in front of an audience. So that part of it didn't really make me nervous as much as just you wanted to do well naturally. You wanted to go up there and kill and be good, and you want your peers to say, oh, you're one of us, you're a good comic. So that's the most terrifying part was not really going up. I wasn't scared to be in front of a class or a crowd as much as I was terrified about doing my act. I was like, oh no, here we go. I'm going to do this joke. But I definitely had shows where shit, and then you have to have some of those to have the good ones. There's no such thing as a comic saying he's never bombed. It's just that's not true. But there are such things as good crowds and bad crowds. People always say that too. They'll say, "Did you blame it on the audience?" And I said, "Well, I've done this long enough. There are such things as crowds that just aren't a good crowd, And I'll tell them we should probably never meet like this again, as a group. Let's never do this because it could be a mood. It could be just the number, the sense of the room could be the people are, we see it not all the time." thank God. But there's nights you go, wow, that was a weird crowd, you know, because you do the same, you know, you do your same shtick and your energy, and you get up there and you're like, wow, one night it lays flat, and the other night it kills. So
you mentioned bombing there, something every comedian probably faces at some point. Sounds like a nightmare to some like myself. I can't imagine. What is that feeling like when you're out there and just nothing's landing? And how then do you not let that derail you from your end goal?
well, that's a good one. That would come from longevity and doing it so long where you've kind of figured out a way to get through the bad. Like most of the ones that I had that were you know, touchy were when I was a lot younger, and I don't think I did know what to do to get myself calmed down and get in track so I can finish. Now, if I have one, I know exactly how to get mentally in my game, and there's a way you just in a sense entertain yourself and know that it's good, and know that it did good last night and it will do good tomorrow night. It just might be an odd night, and you just kind of, it's almost like I was using the analogy of kind of like any kind of sporting, that could be football or it could be like a Formula One race. Okay. So the guy's down 3 laps, right? Middle of the race, he's down 3 laps. He's done, but he stays in it, man. Right. He stays in it, keeps hitting his pit stops, keeps catching the other guys. And at the end of the race, he comes sometimes in first, sometimes a second place, but that's because he kept going and didn't give up. And that's what's easy to do with anything. I mean, if something goes bad, you just want to, you know, fuck it, just give up. But now, as you get older, you kind of figure out a way to save it. I always say I have things like I took a you know a 2 to an 8. You know, it was a 2 crowd to an 8 crowd. You never want to have an 8 to a 2. You know, you always want to go up. But yeah, there's ways mentally now that can keep yourself, and even thinking of that. You know, say, hey, you know what, you're the Rams, you're down 3 touchdowns, you know, and I bet at the end of this show, I'm going to be up. They're all going to be standing up. It's going to be great.
So where I'm from in the UK, we don't get a lot of American stand-up comedy. So I first became a fan of yours when I was younger, and I was watching an episode of Family Guy where you appeared in the show, and I didn't understand the reference at the time because you know, we don't get a lot of American comics, but that's what, you know, led me to look you up. I remember seeing you on Scrubs as well at one point.
Yeah.
And that's how I became familiar with your work. But with that Family Guy sketch, it's just quite an iconic scene. How do you reflect on that now? Because when someone like Family Guy approaches you, are you thinking in your head, okay, is this a joke aimed at me? Is this a joke I'm involved in? How did you first take that when you were approached by, I'm assuming, Seth MacFarlane?
I thought, well, it was an honor to be on the show, so I thought that's cool. And I knew they were poking fun at me, so I knew I was kind of in on the joke. The fact they're making fun of me being especially the prop is a seesaw. And I remember I was on the phone with Seth and all the writers, and I said, can we come up with another prop, another joke? I don't think that one's funny. And they're all like, what do you mean? This is brilliant. And I said, well, it's kind of stupid, right? A seesaw. And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, maybe something for my act. So I gave him a couple examples. And he said, well, to be honest with you, it wouldn't really work if it was one of yours, because it's supposed to be, yes, we're totally fucking with you, right? So I said, okay, we got to make fun. It's got to be something so stupid. And the guy, because then after I do it, he goes, you're so goddamn funny, Carrot Top. So it was kind of making fun of my act and thinking but then I sat there and thought back and I said, you know, I'd do it. I mean, it's not, whatever, it's the end of the world. But then they said, if you don't want to do it, we'll get somebody else to do it. We don't need you. And I said, no. If you're going to do a Carrot Top reference, I want to be Carrot Top. I want to be the guy. So I just dove in and did it. And, you know, it's funny to this day, even like right now you brought it up, I get people all the time that just walk up and go, seesaw. It's like the craziest thing. So.
Yeah, because I remember I saw that and I thought, I want to see this guy, see what's right. But I quickly learned that even though, it is prop comedy, it's not that, like, that wasn't quite reflective of your actual work. I remember thinking. Yeah. But still, very funny bit, very iconic bit.
Yeah.
So I remember listening to you a couple of, maybe 2 months ago on the Joe Rogan Experience, and you talked about a time in your life where you took a lot of criticism, you took a lot of flack.
Yeah.
What was that like at the time, and what sort of place did that take? Did that ever demotivate you? Did that ever derail you? Was that something you struggled with at all, or were you always quite a perseverer?
I think a little bit of both. I mean, I definitely it always bummed me out because if they, for some strength make fun of me and I was doing really well. So I thought, everyone would say they're jealous, they're just making fun of you because you're Carrot Top, and some people thought, you just came out of the into the scene without, I'm like, no, there was a lot of years working in clubs and doing things, but it wasn't overnight. But I was a quicker success than a lot of comics. And to this day, I've had a lot more success than a lot of my friends who are funnier than me. I mean, it's just one of those things you get lucky, you're at the right place at the right time. I had the right kind of act with the visual stuff. And that's one of the reasons I think they gave me a hard time, because I did all these props. But it's kind of hard to even talk about, because I think it's gone away to a bit. To me, like even doing the Joe Rogan thing, it was like a legitimate kind of people, come to me every day and say, wow, that was great. And you didn't do a prop for 3.5 hours. You just talked. So that was another reason why I was excited to do it, because I wanted to show people that I can, be funny without having to hold up a thing and a thing. I can talk and tell stories. But sometimes it motivated me, to answer your question. Like they make fun of me, and then I would say, you know what, I'm gonna work even harder now. I'm gonna, I was success. I was doing movies. I was doing all these things. I was doing concert halls. I was doing everything. And I get on a tour bus at night, and they'd be the reference on TV, and they'd say Carrot Top, whatever. So sometimes it just made me laugh, because I was like, okay, we just had a great show, and they're just pissed they didn't. So, but you definitely got to persevere through all that. But at the end of the day, you do want your peers to enjoy you. From day one, when I got into this, that's what I told you a while ago when I first got there. And with this small group of local comics every night, I wanted to be part of the team. I wanted them to like me, and one of them didn't, and I think most of those local guys did, they didn't care I did the props, because I wasn't doing their act. Everyone had their own act, in a sense.
I remember really liking something you said. I think you said, consider the source, or something along those lines.
Yes.
Is it more important to you where the opinion comes from rather than what the opinion is?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it comes from some guy sitting in his basement in Wisconsin who's not a comic, or it comes from Bill Maher. I'm going to take the Bill Maher one over the guy that I've not met, probably has never done 5 minutes on stage. So, and nowadays it could be that. It could be some guy just sitting in his basement, pissed off. You got nothing to do except I hate Carrot Top, and come to an hour and a half a night, and then you can give me some. Rip on me, kind of thing. But yeah, it's always been the source. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say even the guy that I don't know doesn't strike a nerve, but it doesn't hit as deep. I just kind of go, okay, you're not going to please everybody.
So was it prop comedy right from the off, or was that something you developed into?
Yeah, kind of sort from the off, but not the very beginning. It was like I did a couple shows, maybe a couple at the college things. And then when I went to the comedy club in West Palm, the woman said to me, your jokes are very school, generic related to school, because that's where I was doing my comedy at the college. I talk about parking and books and teachers. And she's like, that's not really going to work in the comedy. It's got to be a more generalized kind of material. And I said, okay, I get it, from all ages, 18 to 80. So I started coming up more general stuff. And that's when the props came into play. I had a neighborhood crime watch sign on my dorm. And that was my first joke. I walked on stage and said, sorry, I'm late. It was in the neighborhood. And it killed. And I said, how good is their crime watch if they're not even watching their signs? And I was off to a big bang. And the lady said, I love that. Do you have more signs? And I said, I can go steal more. So I went around town and stole all these funny looking signs. And it became that was my whole bit, was me holding and talking about the next sign. And that kind of started the process. And then the lady said, I think more visual stuff is really good. I really like the way you're doing it. So I started thinking visually of things that would be funny, but not in a pun way. That's like the seesaw. I didn't want to do like puns, like, hey, it's a butterfly and it's a butter with wings on it, stick of butter. So I wanted to be more inventive, so it would be like the first one I think I made was an old lady's head on a hat with a spring, so that you'd see her head when she was driving down the road, because all the old people in where I lived was all old people down there. So that would be my big bang. I mean, they'd be like, "Damn, that's funny." And you turn around, like, "Come on, Grandma, go." And so then I started building all these different kind of props. You know, a cowboy boot with a kickstand, so rednecks don't fall down when they're drunk. I mean, they were just come and gum. And I'm still doing it now. I'm in the process of making an espresso. It's going to be like a little espresso. You know, when you're drinking an espresso, it's kind of hard to, you know, because you feel so feminine, like, hi, and you. So I'm going to make a little espresso cup, but I'm going to have a handle, like a beer handle that attaches to it. So, and it's going to float out here. So I've got, you know, rednecks and straight guys can drink, you know, without going on. Yeah. So that kind of stuff. It's kind of inventive in a sense. Yeah.
So everyone knows you now as, you know, this iconic, you know, prop king, but there's that saying that it takes, I don't know, 10 years to become an overnight success. What was the early grind of stand-up comedy like for you before you started seeing the big results?
Well, there was a lot of years of that, you know, I was telling people, you know, there's one time I was in a loft. I got to there was a bar, and I got there, and there was like, you know, we're having comedy night. So I get there, and I'm like, "Where's the stage?" And the guy's like, right up there. And I said, "Where?" And he says, "Right there." I said, "In the loft." It was like there wasn't room to stay in. I just sit, and my friend would throw up props, and I'd do them, and I'd throw it back down. He'd throw the next one up. It was the weirdest show I think I ever did in my life, but from a loft. And people were drinking and going, "What the?" And I'm watching. It's horrible. We did one in a strip club in Atlanta. I showed up, and I thought maybe the night was, you know, they didn't have strippers. They were going to have comedy. So I get there, and I'm setting up my stuff, and I said, "What time does the show start?" And he says, "Well, between the third girl, you're going to come up and do, and then the next 3 girls come up, and then you're going to do one set, and then we're done." I said, "Oh, there's strippers too?" And he said, "Well, it's a strip club." I said, "Oh, I thought you just closed it down just for comedy." He said, "No, it's going to be girls and you." And I said, "Okay, this is going to, how many times have you done this?" And the guy's like, we did it, well, once, like a month ago. I said, "How'd it go?" He's like, "Yeah, it was all right." I'm like, "Oh, great." So I'm literally the fucking guinea pig for this thing. So sure enough, the third girls, I'm losing. Now I am nervous. So the girl's up there doing her thing, and then they go, "Please welcome the comedy of Carrot Top." And I come walking out in my little box trunk, and they're like, "Boo!" I mean, it was unbelievable. They were booing, so they wouldn't even listen. But I was smart, so after I set all my stuff up that afternoon, I went to one of these like little porn stores, and I bought like this fake set of boobs, and so, you know, they're all like, "Boo!" No, I said, "I know, look, but look, hey, I got tits too." And I held up, you know, tits, and then they loved me, because I was like, they knew that I was struggling, and I had, you know, I didn't want to be up there either. I don't want to do this. I want to see girls do it, but I got to do this. So I did the tits, and they loved it, and I do another prop, and then they boo, and I put the tits back out, and so I won them over in a sense. But those days, when you think back on it, I mean, that's really, you know, it's just it's weird that I survived it, you know, and kept wanting to do comedy. There was one college I showed up where they had a breezeway. It was in a fucking breezeway, right? Like 6 feet wide, you know, just sidewalk. And I go, and the guy's like, I said, where am I performing at? He said, "Right here. They're bringing a stage." And I said, "In the breezeway?" And he goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, wait, so the kids are coming, the kids are coming, you know, this way, and you're going to stand there and tell jokes." And then I said, "No, I'm not." And he says, "Yeah, that's where it is. It's the gig." And I said, "Well, I'm not doing." The only time I did not do a show, I walked away, was that guy, and he was so pissed. He's like, "I'm calling your agency." I said, "Well, you call my agency. You want to stand in a fucking milk crate in a hall in a breezeway?" So I didn't do that gig.
I don't blame you. I've got two questions left before I let you get out of here. The first one, like we mentioned, you know, you're the king of prop comedy almost. I mean, no one owns any genre, but if someone does, it's you. And prop, like, no one can do prop comedy without, you know, acknowledging Carrot Top. Is legacy something that matters to you?
Well, I don't think about it now. I think about when I'm done. And I said, "It's kind of cool." I had a chapter on in pop culture, that was something that was people remember probably. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool. Well, I think it's cooler now because I remember when I came up with the idea of doing it, that the fact that that it did become what it did. Like, it's weird. I'm in my dorm room and I'm thinking I'm gonna go up and tell jokes, and I'm gonna be a comedian, and then this years later you're part of a legacy, you're part of a thing, and so it's kind of cool in that regard. I never have time just to soak it in, but when people say, yeah, you're legendary, you're a legend, you whatever, you're Carrot Top, their thing. It's kind of cool, and I just love the fact that I could still do it. I never would have thought that I would have done it even for a year. I didn't think I could do it 37 years now. And that the process becomes still crazy. Like that little cup one I just thought of this morning or yesterday. Keep writing new stuff and coming up with creative material is the fun part too, because I think that's what makes it. That's why I'm still around. I think I keep doing new. Adele just got in trouble for canceling, so we had so much fun with Adele. It's killing in the show. I did this whole video where she's like, "I'm not ready. It's not ready." I'm like, "Well, who the fuck's ever? I'm not ready. I've been doing this 36 years. I've never been ready. So get out there and." But it's been fun. It's been fun. Writing all this stuff all the years and looking back and and going. I don't think I have a plan on retiring because I don't know what the hell else I know. I don't know how to do anything else. Literally.
The last question I ask every guest I speak to, this could be anything. It could be family, it can be your friends, it could be your work, it can be comedy. For Carrot Top, what makes life worth living?
Oh wow, that's a heavy question. What does it make life? Well, I mean, everything from mine's a little maybe different facets because I have this unique job. So I love every day going to do a show. I mean, people always like, you need 6 nights a week. Oh man, that sucks. I'm like, no, it's fun. I mean, that's my vent. That's my ghetto. That's my, that's my whole me. I can't wait to go and try something new or try to do better. But I also love what makes me go is, of course, family and friends and people that, I'm lucky I have my brother and his kids and my mom. They all live in Vegas, believe it or not. So I'm lucky that I get a chance to see them. I have a little goddaughter that's 2. And it's just, that's weird because I never had kids, but I kind of lived through this kid. And it's like just watching her, grow up is pretty cool because you see like how they become human. They start telling, sentences and she's like, Uncle Toddy. And you're like, what? It's so weird. I remember you just shit on me. Now she's talking to me. So. So there's a lot of things to live for in life. I mean, I'm lucky to have my health. That's good. But I live for every day. I mean, I live, that's one thing I do. I never really think, I mean, it's fun to think back in the future and like talking with you about things because you're like, wow, that seems like a lot of years ago. But I always look for the next day too. I always look like, what's going to happen today? What's going to happen tomorrow? And so I don't really reflect on that. People say, "Wait, do you want to be 20 again?" I said, "No, not really. I mean, maybe when I was in SAC, I wouldn't mind being 20, but I like where I'm at mentally and physically, and I like that I feel like if I had to do this again and go back through all this again, it'd scare the shit out of me. I don't know how. I don't even know if I would do it. People say, "Will you do it again?" I'm like, I don't know. I might just be, if I know how hard it was or how hard it is now with the technology and how many people in this. I don't think we even have, like stand-up comics. I don't think we even have that kind of thing anymore. There's not that many clubs that have stand-up comedy shows anymore. The television doesn't really put on a lot of comics anymore. So it's probably the internet, through TikTok and that kind of stuff. But with the problem with that is they never get the stage thing, walking into the camera every day. You got to get, for a stand-up comic, you got to smell beer and hear booing and hear bottles clinking and there's all these things that come into a lot of people heckling you and shit. You don't get heckled when you're on so it's important for a stand-up comic, I think, to experience the live audience.
I love it, man. I love it. So look, thank you so much for speaking with me today. It's been an absolute honor. You've given me more laughs than most people I've ever encountered on the planet. A lot of my laughs can be attributed to Carrot Top. So thank you so much for that. I really hope one day you I'm not sure if you have yet, but release a almost like a tell-all book. I'm sure you have so many stories to share.
I'm trying to work on it, Lewis. I'm doing that right now. I really am. I'm actually working on a book. A lot of these things that I've been talking about, even in this kind of medium, is going to be kind of what the book's going to be about, like the road to wherever the hell the name of the book will be. But it's going to be all the stories. There's so many things that have happened in my career that people might want to find. Even just like the strip club thing. It's like, I didn't want to do that gig, but it was like, what do? You just make the best of it, try to figure out a way to get through it creatively. And then it ended up working better than I probably would have imagined.
Well, I can't wait for that. And hopefully,
I took one of the strippers home too.
I'm sure you did. Look, man, when that comes out, hopefully I can speak to you again. We can, let people know more about the book. We can talk about.
It'll be in your book. It'll be in your bookshelf.
It'll be on this bookshelf. Yeah.
Right.
Amazing. Look, man, thanks so much. It's been an absolute honor to speak to you, and I hope we get to do it again.
Likewise. Thanks for a wonderful interview. Really.